I was the emergency management coordinator for Highlands County. I've been a FEMA instructor for about 20 years now. A state instructor for about the same for emergency management. I've been in ham radio for almost 18 years. And I was the DEC for West Central Florida for about 5 years. I was assistant SEC, section emergency coordinator for West Central Florida for 4 years. And I've been the section emergency coordinator now for 4 years with West Central Florida. My mantra is, if someone tells you they're an expert in anything public safety, run fast, because there's just so much information and things change so fast. So that's all I have, Carl.
Thank you, Ben. Again, like I said, we're all working together, so we're all a team. And I think I have a conversation with you guys at least once a week, if not twice a week, about different things. They have many years of experience of ICS and NIMS, and of course I have almost 20 years in ARES. So together, I think we've been doing a good job the last, especially since after Michael. But this presentation I'm going to be covering, or Ben's going to be covering, is one thing I've had issues really understanding sometimes, and I've had questions about it from other people, other ECs, non-ECs, is the ICS 214, and it's not really ICS, but it's 309. I think it was, Ben, I think you said it was with fire at some point. But it's just basically it's a radio log. It's very handy. It's just like pretty much any other amateur radio log that we've worked with. So it's very easy to understand. The confusion I've had in the past is what should be put on a 214 or 214, and what should be put on a 309. Mostly the 214. What should not, and get confused. I've had people also ask about when they do a formal message, where should the message number be? Things like that. And I think Ben, since he has so much experience with working with the ICS forms and being in emergency services, he's the best qualified among us to present this. So Ben, I'll send it over to you. You're gonna have to tell me how to set you up as a presenter again. I have forgotten.
I just sent you the request. Should have popped up, I hope.
Yes. Oh, hold on a second. I right-clicked and then started slowing down. No, not right-clicking. Okay, I think I gave it to you.
There we go, I think. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Okay.
Share. It's on my side now.
Okay, there we go.
Hopefully
I'll let you have it.
You got it?
I can see it. John, can you see it? Just to double check.
Yeah, I've got it. No problem. It looks good on my screen.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, first off, let me get into the mantra or the background of forms. All ICS forms, and the 309 is an ICS form because we're defining it under our plans, including the state plan, to use it as the communications log. because there is not a true communications log in FEMA's ICS, but there is a communications log that came from the fire side that FEMA is looking at adopting. So technically, the 214, and when we say ICS forms, you got to remember all ICS forms are made to document during the incident and are required to go to your documentation unit through your supervisor, unless the agency that your served agency has a different route. Sometimes they want you to drop them with this person or that person or so on and so on. Oh, that's a control. No, there we go. Okay. The 214 activity log is basically made for personnel and or equipment. And I'm going to read it right off the text because this is right out of FEMA, where someone can't say that we're changing what's out there, because we're not. The activities log records detailed and notable activities at any ICS level, including single resources, which most of our operators will be. Even you can use a separate ICS form for equipment, task forces, etc. The logs provide basic incident activity documentation and reference to any after-action report. Okay, in the preparation of the 214, it can initially be, and I can't talk tonight, guys. I apologize. It can be initiated and maintained by personnel in various ICS positions. All that basically is saying anyone can maintain a 214 form as it is needed or appropriate. Personnel should document how relevant incident activities are occurring and progressing, and any notable events or communications. Now, when they say communications, they're talking about communications with your supervisor, such as, we're going to move you from shelter A to shelter B, or you're no longer needed, or we want you to also assist Red Cross. It's a change in your mission. It's a change in what you've been assigned to do. Distribution. As it states here, completed ICS 214s are submitted to the supervisors, who forward them to the documentation unit. All completed original forms must be given to the documentation unit, which maintains the file of all ICS 14s. I'm going to say this. It says it's recommended that individuals retain a copy of their own record. I would almost say that that is a given. Always maintain a copy of your own record. Even if it's as simple as if there's not a copy machine available, of taking a picture of it on your cell phone. Okay, on the activities log, the first 3 boxes, the incident name will be given to you, and that's the incident you've actually been deployed to. The operational period. It's month, day, year, just like everything else. It's 24 hours. Now, some served agencies will want you to do that in local time. Others may want you to do it in Zulu time or UTC. And others may want you to actually use your actual time zone or a different time zone. So you got to keep that in mind. The name, where it says name, it's the title of the organizational unit or resource designator, i.e., ARES radio, ARES Races radio, so on and so forth. It may be communications unit. It's the actual title given to your unit or you as a resource when you are dispatched and or you're deployed. That is not your name. On box 4 and 5 is enter the name or ICS position of the individual in charge of the unit. So that's going to be your point of contact if you're on a deployment. So if it's XYZ, who is the COML or communication unit leader, that's what you're going to actually put there. Home unit. It's the actual home agency of your individual completing the ICS 214. So the home designator, that's actually used to find you after the event in case they need something, more information, or they need something that's filled out that they don't have. As you see, this form is all about resources. It's not, I repeat, it is not a communications log. Worst case scenario, if you're not going to use the 309, is you have a separate communications log. Communications tracking does not go on a 214 form. Resources assigned, as it says, name, use this section to enter the resource's name. For individuals, use at least the first initial last name. Cell phone numbers for individuals can be added as an option. The ICS position that they hold. The home agency of that person. For instance, you may have a second person that is added to the communications radio room while you're operating. So you would just add them to the 214 that you already have at the unit level. They don't have to fill an individual one out because they will mimic what you have. Now, what you will do on the next screen is under activity, it is anything that is notable or events such as task assignments, task completions, injuries, difficulties encountered, such as my radio broke, we lost power. The big one, we lost toilets, so on and so forth. It is not went to lunch at 11:15, back at 12:20. It is not to track what you are personally doing. It is to track what is going on for your assignment. As long as you start at 0700 hours and you have no difficulties all day, you pass X number of traffic through the day. At the end of the day, notable item, completed shift at 1900 hours, 415 messages delivered, so on and so forth. If you have any difficulties, such as broken radio, broken equipment, personnel issues, second operator went home sick, second operator went to infirmary, second operator went to the hospital, or you go to the hospital, or have anything of that level of occurrence, is what goes on a 214 form. Prepared by. And this is important because, believe it or not, this is the block that gets screwed up the most out of all of it. And I've reviewed literally thousands and thousands of 214 forms over the years, all the way back to Hurricane Andrew. About 5 years later, after the fact, we did a post evaluation of some stuff, and you would not believe some of the issues that come up. Prepared by. If there's 2 of you or 4 of you in the radio room, one person, and it does not have to be the senior person, but whoever actually prepares the form, that is who needs to put their name, position, title, signature, and date and time. Not prepared by one person and then signed off by another person. Whoever prepared it is the one that needs to sign it off. And that completes the 214. Before we go on to the 309, are there any glaring questions that we can answer real fast?
Yeah, just put them in the chat area if you're able to have access to that. At this point, there isn't any questions yet.
Okay.
Just real quick on the, just real quick, I started the recording late. So if anybody that was wondering, that was the recording starting. But go ahead.
Okay, on the 309, and let me defer, the 309, we're using as the communications log, and that's what it's actually designed for. And it was actually designed by the National Fire Administration, the Feds. And it falls right in line with the ICS forms because guess what? That's what it was designed for. So the communication log records all detailed messages, traffic, and is used for either individual or net control operators. These logs provide basic reference from which to extract communication traffic history. The log is initiated and maintained by the net control operator or individual operator, i.e. field communicator. Completed logs are submitted to the supervisor who forwards them to the documentation unit. The documentation unit maintains a file of all communication logs. All completed original forms must be forwarded to the documentation unit. And this form is as simple as it can be. The incident name or activation number if you have a mission number, the operational period to and from, the radio net name if you have one. I would suggest that not only you put the net name there or position tactical call, that you possibly put the actual frequency as well. That's just from experience. The actual radio operator name or call sign. Now, keep in mind that is the person that's initiated it. If you change during the net or during your assigned period, there's no foul. All you have to do is note when you change net operators. Now, I would note that on my 214. And then on the actual log, you'd put an entry just like you would any other time that says that so-and-so took over as net control. That simple. When you get down to the communications log, kind of looks familiar, I would imagine, if you're doing NCS or anything else. The time, the call sign ID from message number to call sign message number. If you're not using message numbers, you're going to want to put the message and or an abbreviated message out to the right. And the reason I say that is if you're using message numbers, you're going to have individual forms you're filling out for those messages. They go along with the communications log. If you don't have individual messages, for instance, some EOCs or some agencies will be using like Web EOC, then you're going to want to put a brief message out to the right as to what the message was that you sent, along with actually putting it on a message form. That is just a quick reference because at the end of your shift, your communication log is going to stay for the next person coming on. You're still going to send a copy of it out, but you're actually going to have to keep a copy as well because you're going to have open messages and responses and replies that you're going to want to go back and reference during your shift. It says enter local time 24-hour format. And like I said before, that is the standard, but if your served agency wants you to do something different, then you're going to do whatever the served agency wants you to do. Same thing as the 214 prepared by, and that's prepared by. And whoever is preparing it, or the last person, they need to sign off on it, date and time, page 1 of X or X of X, however many pages you have. Now, keep in mind, all completed ICS forms are submitted to the supervisor who forwards them to the documentation unit. And I want to elaborate on that because this is where a lot of people are really confused. If you are at your home ARES group, you are serving your county, your Red Cross, whoever your served agency is, your supervisor is your chain of command there. Plain and simple. If you are deployed, when you get deployed to another county, another state, in some cases another country, and they're using ICS forms, your supervisor is whoever your point of contact, that's the person in charge of you or your unit, is when you get there. So a copy of those forms always goes to your local supervisor, and they may not get them every shift every time. Sometimes you may not see them for a couple of days, and that's fine depending on what the format and what else is going on. But you want to make sure you keep a copy. And like I said, it's as simple as just taking your phone and snapping a photo of the form when it's completed, and make sure that they get to the documentation unit. That's all I have. So I'm going to go back to the chat here and pull out some questions real quickly, if I can get that far over. Okay. And just to re-elaborate for Ron Haynes, your supervisor is truly who's running your EOC or who you report to at your EOC. If you're in someone else's EOC, mutual aid and or actually deployed at the state level, it is who is in charge of your unit there. Hypothetically, it should be a communication unit leader. The state's working to put a COML or a communication unit leader in every single EOC that's activated. So that is who we should be looking toward.
I got one thing. What about when they're giving a cert track with the contact information there? Is that going to be a supervisor?
Yes. That point of contact is a supervisor and or a director in some cases. So
okay,
when you actually get there, that director will hand you off to someone else. You may be directed to go see John Smith, who's the Director of Emergency Management, or like for 18 years I was the Emergency Management Coordinator, so I got that task. So everyone coming into the county came to me, and then I would hand them off to the EC and or a dispatch supervisor and or someone on staff to handle communications. And that's the standard that's out there, supposed to be under ICS nationwide. Any other
I have a
questions?
comment, Ben.
Go ahead.
So just something for everybody to think about too, when you're talking about retaining the copy, not only is it good for CYA, but as we're looking forward, we'll be looking at task books and things of that nature. It might be good to have some of that information to remind yourself of activities you've done. And also, as far as the ICS 309 goes, another reason you might not have a message number is because we'll be dealing with a lot of tactical messages pretty early on, if you agree with that.
Correct. And that's why I said make sure if you don't have a message number and it's not written out, that you put what you need to in that message slot where you can actually get to where you actually know what the message was about. Because if not, I won't say you'll get hung out to dry, but I have seen where people come back and they want to point fingers when they didn't do something, when in fact you haven't documented how it was done and how they instructed you to do it. And it is a big CYA. Or in some cases, it's a savior because you did XYZ and you documented it, and the breakdown may be at the other end. my other recommendation is anyone being deployed and or any local ARES group at an EOC or at an agency, they have a copy of all the ICS forms they're going to need. And they carry with them their own copies when they go for an activation. So if you're going for a shelter or to a shelter, which let me explain that a little bit too, if that's okay, Carl, because there was some confusion there.
Yeah, you can
If
go ahead, and
you're-
there's also another question too. There's also 2 more questions if you see them.
Okay. If when you get deployed, it is the same as your local county. All the shelters in your county or all the locations that an ARES operator is at will report back to one net control, which is 99.9% of the time that one net control is at the EOC, because all information going above the county level goes through the Emergency Operations Center of a county to the state for additional requests. I didn't make that up, just so everyone understands. If they want some good reading at bedtime, it's Florida Statute 252, and it spells it out in the statute that no disaster relief, or I believe it says no disaster relief, equipment, manpower, so on and so forth, will not be deployed from the state of Florida or federal without going through your local county. The reason for that is many, but the biggest reason is the local county holds the purse of being required to pay for it if they request it. The other side of that is, if you're deployed and there is zero communications in that county, which we had multiple counties that had zero communication with the state, you may be deployed for, say, a shelter, and they may actually redeploy you when you get there, that point of contact, to maybe an EOC or to a command post in the field, depending on how the structure is set up for that county. Go with the flow, but make sure if you are actually told to do something other than what your mission is, that when you get a chance, and I don't mean right that second, but when you get a chance, make sure that whoever sent you, i.e., whichever of the 3 SECs is handling personnel deployment, knows that you're in a different role or a different location. And I know I'm throwing a lot at everyone, and it's going to get all jumbled up, but if there truly are any questions or anything, feel free to call me. Let me see if I can see these other chats. The normal position for a ARES position, we've had discussion with that, and the box that I believe the state, and John and Carl can elaborate more, but I believe the box officially that we're going to fall under is AUXCOM. AUXCOM. In some cases, they may fall under a RADO, R-A-D-I-O, or RADO, which is a radio operator. And in other cases, they may fall into a technical specialist. And that will be determined when you're actually deployed. So if you're deployed out of your county, you will actually be told what position you're going to fill when you're being deployed. The other thing that we talk to the state about doing is when we deploy people, we may also deploy trainees. So there may be a fully qualified person and there may be a trainee with that person. As people are pre-designated for deployment, under the ARRL level 1, 2, and 3 system, it'll be basically, we'll make sure that whoever's being deployed, whoever's going to get a trainee is okay with having a trainee, basically. I would suggest using a daytime group as a message number, same as the military. No. And the reason we would not use the daytime group as a message number, same as the military, is because we have other messages that get passed, and at the other end, you're going to confuse the crap out of people. That's why if there's a tactical message, you just pass it and document it. If it's a formal message, it will be on a message form, and they may dictate it to you, and they may ask you to write it and send it. But it needs to be sent on written on a message form and given a number. And I understand why you do that, but it kind of gets jumbled up on the other end, especially if someone comes in after you and they don't do it exactly the same way, if that makes sense.
I would also suggest to make sure they sign it so we know who, and after the event, we know who made it and we see that they signed it. And where should the 213s go, Ben?
The 213s, I would actually put them with the communications log, and I would leave them with the communications log. Any originals, if you have access to a copier, of course, go to the documentation unit, and I'd be sending them with the comm log. Or I would ask that question to the person that you report to, because they may want you to keep all 213s and all comm logs until the end of the event in one place. So they may want you to be the holder of the record until you're finished or until you're relieved. So it all depends on how your agency wants to handle the documentation. And yes, I understand that a 213 does not have a field for a message number. The 213 that I should have put up on the screen and we should have talked about tonight, that it was going to be way too long, is actually a 213 that has a NTS format in it. Let me see if I can find that real fast.
If not, I can send it. And also, I do have it already set up on my computer to take a look at. The one you sent me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
yeah, I'm going
to
send it out.
With a lot of the counties being on WebEOC, the 214 form that prints out in front of you is going to be totally different, and that's fine because that's what their agency wants to use. So what you would do then is I just put a place on there and make a place for a message number. Trying to remember where I put you.
I have it here in front of me if you want me to show it.
Yeah, go ahead and take it back over and show it. I don't have it readily in front of me.
Hey, Ben, well, Carl's working on that real quick. What do you suggest with the WinLink version? A lot of our agencies here in Southern Florida are using the WinLink, of course, and using that because it's fast with like the fire chiefs and whatnot. There'd be it's going to be automatically saved to the system, so we'd probably be okay. Is that right?
Yes, but at the same time, if it's something that you're passing, say, to the state, or to the feds at the request of your agency you're serving, I would make sure I printed a copy of that out, and I would actually add my own message number to it, and I would keep it with all my 213s, no matter what format it is in.
Okay, that sounds good. And when you're talking about message numbers, we're also thinking, if I'm understanding correctly, we'd be thinking along the NTS lines as well. So if you follow the radiogram format, you always just start like with number 1 or whatever number you want to start with, and keep it simple, right? Try not to make it too complicated, because then it's more chance to get screwed up in the system, right?
Correct. Can you go back up, Carl? Just all the way to the page 1 or page 2, where it shows the actual. There we go. Okay. Basically, this is NTS format without the spaces in there. Go down 2 more. I think. Keep going. No, yeah, there you go. 1 up, where it shows we actually have forms that have the NTS form that embeds in the message of the ICS 213 form. So that's one thing that we have not standardized on. We've talked about it. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl and John, I think that's where we're going to head with it. But that's going to be for 213 messages where an agency doesn't have something they want to use. I.e., you get to Bay County or one of the counties and they say, whatever you want to do. Just get a hold of so-and-so and tell them we need help, or so on and so forth. That would be the fallback form if your served agency doesn't have a form there. Let me hit real fast on the fact that if you're in a county, there's no reason, and I say no reason, if you're assigned to a shelter, there's no reason that you'd really be using HF. If you're assigned to an EOC or a command post, that's the only position, radio position, that should be talking or passing messages outside of their county or their service area. So it's just the same. Let me reiterate that. It's just the same as if you're in your local county. If you're in a shelter or assigned somewhere, you talk back to that net control, like I said, 99.9% at the EOC, and then information goes within the emergency management system to the powers to be.
Of course, if it's as major as Michael, we'll have HF in some shelters, depending on what's going on.
Until the county is up. Once the county or command post is up, those shelters should not be communicating with anyone past the county.
Hey, Ben, that's
Yeah.
that's a really good point for everybody to remember, is that, we're basically trying to follow a chain of commands so that we don't get things duplicated and screwed up. And obviously, if you go to your first level of chain and you can't get to them, obviously you're going to have to go to whatever you can to get outside of it. But as the most part,
Correct.
You want to stay in the chain as much as possible. I think maybe I'll address that for a second on all things.
Correct. Because during Michael, what we had was, in some counties, there were 4 or 5 different locations sending stuff, and then in a lot of cases were duplicate requests for the same material or personnel to the state EOC, and because of the time delay and the different message routes and or communication type being used, the state EOC was spending hours trying to figure out if some things were duplicate or not, because some things that were coming through HF were getting bounced around and they weren't getting for a day and a half or 2 days. And it really confused the hell out of a bunch of people. Do they really need another 14 porta potties at XYZ shelter. We just sent them 14 day before yesterday or yesterday, kind of a deal. And it's really hard when you're getting those duplicated messages in. And go from there. Go down, Carl. I want to go down to one more page. Just like before, you have a message preamble that goes at the top of the 213, the ARES 213 form. And it's that simple. You have a preamble, you have the to, the from, the subject, the date, the time, and then your actual message. Who approved by it, what their title is. I definitely would have them sign it. If they are verbally telling you to send a message, especially if they're requesting anything, unless you truly trust them, I would have them sign it, because let's just say after working in logistics for more than 15 years, a lot of finger pointing after the fact goes on when the bills start coming in. Go down one more.
There's also a clarification question.
Go ahead. Operators of the American Red Cross shelter can or cannot pass HS traffic to ARC headquarters. If they are the served agency, and that's why that caveat is, if they are the served agency, you will use whatever net they want. But you will only be passing traffic, like in this case, if it's the American Red Cross shelter, you're only going to be passing it to the American Red Cross headquarters. Then it's up to them to get that request back to the state of Florida. At no time should the American Red Cross shelter be passing messages directly to the state of Florida. And I hope that makes sense. If you're assigned even to Red Cross or say Salvation Army, you're going to be on the Saturn net. You're going to be on their net. And that traffic, they already have pathways for those messages and message handling to get it to where it needs to go. So Red Cross is your served agency, have at it. HF all you want, if that is what your served agency wants you to do. But that served agency does not have the authority to bypass agreements in place, for instance, from that American Red Cross shelter to send requests directly to the state of Florida for stuff. That's a no-no. They have to go to the American Red Cross headquarters, and then through their chain of command, it would come back to the state of Florida EOC through their rep. Red Cross and Salvation Army actually maintain a rep at the EOC when they go to a level 1 activation. And yes, some stuff is broad, and it's written that way because every county in the state of Florida, all 67 of them, do things differently. And then when you throw the state of Florida on, depending on who the incident commander is at the state or the ECO, emergency coordinating officer of the state, for that incident, it may be done differently again. So there's a lot of leeway. That's why I keep that caveats out there, that whatever your served agency or however they want it done, document it and do it their way. And you know, it's not like Burger King's old ad, have it your way. We're there to assist and to help, and you know, that's just how it is. If using web, it has to be capable to record and send messages and start a 248. Okay, if you're using WebEOC, every time they send you an actual message across WebEOC, it's already documented. And there's a function that they can actually already print the logs out. They actually have a comm log within WebEOC, but it depends on your county and how your county has it set up. I will tell you, 99% of the time, if you're outside of the EOC, you will not have WebEOC access. I've had people say, well, I got to take my laptop to get the WebEOC. If you're in a devastated area like Michael's path, there's still places, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's in your area, that don't have phones restored yet. Or at least that was what they said at the state EOC. I can't remember how many they said, but there was a bunch of people that still don't have phones and a bunch more that don't have internet. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, just to clarify that, the 214 is automatically built and direct enter and having paper format. All this is from the originator, shelter manager, MSD. Okay, let me clarify that, Carl. In real life, the person that is needing stuff is going 500 different ways, and what they're getting paid to do is direct. And if they've got resources at hand and they want people to do things, then in real life, you're going to do it. You're going to write it out or do whatever. They're going to sign off on it. And yes, you're going to want everything legible. And what I've actually done at one EOC is because let's just say I didn't trust the situation for a hurricane that flooded Central Florida. I even went as far as to take a picture of a few people. That way, later on, because there were 3 people, and they were actually named Carl, where we could keep who was who straight, kind of a deal. But yes, the originator may actually give you a verbal message and ask you to put it on the form. And yes, they should sign it. But if it's life and death and they've got 500 things going on at once, they may actually ask you to take over and do certain things, and they have the authority to designate or delegate, actually, not designate, delegate you to do those activities.
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
So another thing to think about, everybody, that those of you that work the NTS system, for example, we spend a lot of time getting confused on radiograms that are originated. In this case, it's the same thing. You're originating the message. Your sole responsibility is to get the message out. So even if you're like sitting there on a WinLink or something and you're typing it, you know, and the fire chief or whoever's standing next to you asking you this telling you this information, you're just the conduit that sends it. They're responsible for what the content is. Well, obviously you're responsible not to be illegal on your license, but for everything else, they're responsible. And it's unlikely that you would know how to request a certain, or that you would request a certain specific thing that would be related to them. I wouldn't overly worry about that. You're assigned there. You're going to have your logs to back you up. They're going to know that you didn't just think this up. Okay, I'm going to order 14 fire trucks. It's not going to likely happen because your job is just to transmit what they want. So think about this. They're going to come to you. They're going to tell you you want something, and you're going to have to help formulate that message with them. And if you've ever done any exercises with these folks, first responders, they have a tendency to be a little colorful, number one, and you got to deal with that because obviously you don't want to hurt your license. But number two, you also want to make sure that the message is saying exactly what they want. And like Ben said, they're going to be running around pretty good multitasking, and every once in a while things get a little confusing. Just something to think about. If they tell you to do it, I would do it. You're working for the served agency. Just make sure you're not violating your license and make sure that you have the message the way they want it. I always have them double check it.
Okay, it's 8:05. We got to gonna have to cut it here soon.
Okay. And Jeff, that is true. But let me tell you from experience, in 2004 for Charlie and Gene, I was an incident commander for the first shift for our county. for Charlie, we lost all communication. We had consecutive lightning strikes for over 4 hours, actually. So the first lightning strikes happened, equipment got hit, put backup equipment in place. Within 20 minutes, guess what? Building got struck again, that equipment's blown up. Now we're scrounging for stuff. When we finally got to where we could get to my truck, which had a sat phone in it, I actually had an ARES operator sitting in my truck with a list of all the stuff that we needed. And they passed that on to the state where it could get into the state system. That first initial 48 hours, there's a lot of stuff is not formally documented. And it's not because people are lazy, it's because there's so much going on all at once. The other thing is you have so many of your citizens requesting so much stuff of government in those first 72 hours, 48 to 72 hours, that it gets really hectic really fast. And yes, anything requested needing reimbursement should be signed. My recommendation is if you pass the message, you have them sign it or someone initial it right then and there. If they're available, if they're not, I would still pass the message and I go back and have them sign it. And if they don't want to sign it, then my next message would be to cancel whatever the message was. And I hate to get into the politics end of it, but that's actually how I would handle it. Because if you get a message for 3,000 MREs and 5 pallets of water and 25 cots for a special needs shelter, and your county rep says, I need you to pass this message to the state right away, it's one of those, you're going to pass the message, you're going to document it on your end, you're going to have him sign or initial if he's available right then. If he's not, I would go back around as soon as he was, or the next time he's in and say, hey, sign off on these that you sent.
Hey, one quick thing, Ben, I saw a question go by. I don't think you addressed it. One person made the comment, and it's correct, is that there is no message number on the ICS 213. So are you thinking
Correct.
put a message number right in the request subject, or are you thinking somewhere else?
If you go up on the 213, I would write it, me personally, hold on one second. Upper left where your preamble is where the number would go.
I see it now.
I'm making my own numbers up. I would put a number there, even on a standard 213 form. I'd still get a number if I needed to. If I'm passing it to the state or I'm passing it to the American Red Cross headquarters, because I'm a Red Cross shelter, I would still, even if there's nothing else or no preamble, I would still give them a number. That way I can track it internally on my log, if that makes sense. Because I don't care, you can add to their form as long as you don't take away from their form. And the
That's
other
no
thing
different.
is, everyone keep in mind at any time, if there's an issue going on or something, flip that exact form over and document what you need to document right on the form. That way it's not on a separate piece of paper that can be lost later.
Okay, are there any other questions real quick? One thing I want to point out also is I've gotten this is why not, they want to know what Florida, the state of Florida does their ICS and their structure and everything, and then they go to other states or other areas and look at how their system is set up, and then expect Florida's system's gonna be like that. I can understand that. Years ago, or months ago actually, I felt the same way. I felt that all states were gonna be running the same thing. I quickly found out that they don't. Florida runs its own ICS. Yeah, good.
Correct. And like I said, 67 counties, they do everything their own way. So they fall under the Florida system, but I'll guarantee if you read CEMP's comprehensive emergency management plans for the individual counties, you will see that they fall out totally different from county to county. As long as the functionality is being completed, that's all they care.
A good way I like to put it is each county is an island and each state is their own island as well. So they're kind of in their own little area. And also with EOC, Web EOC is getting big. I think most of the counties have them, but I know of at least two counties that they have no plans on implementing it. So that's another thing.
Correct. The state of Florida actually funded Web EOC for every county in the state.
But those
So
two counties still decided not to go against it. They still decided to go against it. And that's bad for them.
Correct. Those counties will remotely get into the state's Web EOC to pass traffic and to get their information. And for smaller counties, I understand that because I've been in 2 EOCs that the complete staff is one person that's actually doing 911 emergency management, is the fire chief and is the director of EMS. So it would not do too good to implement Web EOC for the local county when it's one person doing everything.
Yeah, another point is Bay County. After he did his presentation, he took over, I think he said in May, before the hurricane hit, and he was basically in like my position, still setting things up when the hurricane hit. And I think he told us, because I was at a presentation that he did on Bay County, how they handled Michael. There was, I think, 4 or 5 people normally stationed during emergency management operations. So it's could be a very small amount of people there. And then suddenly being pushed into a Michael is crazy.
Correct. And it's one of those that have lived through it, especially those that have lived through it multiple times, they understand, even if you have a system, the system, if it's between life safety, where someone is hurting or someone is not eating or someone doesn't have fuel or shelter, a lot of things get done. They get documented well after the incident. Now, I'm not suggesting that any of our operators or any of our ARES members take it upon themselves to take care of any of that. It still needs to come through the chain of command. But if it does come through and it's not in writing in formal format, as long as it's your point of contact or incident commander or someone in that chain that's authorized to do it, like I said, I would just document the hell out of it and make sure they initial or sign off on it, even after the fact. But I would get that resource ordered as fast as you can, because a lot of this stuff, believe it or not, is life safety. We have people in special needs shelters that if they're needing generators or they're needing certain food or certain medications, that if they don't get it, they may not live. And I know that firsthand, unfortunately, because I'm one of those. So, it comes down to, it's a big deal. And the best that we can ask anyone to do, the most we can do is ask everyone to do their best. And like I say, help, not hinder, not argue. If they want you to do it their way, then learn their way and do it their way, by all means. If they don't have a way, I would always suggest the standard ICS route, because that's a federal standard, which the states adopted. So you can't go wrong there, because that's also what we're looking at using. Everyone's looking at using statewide.
Yeah, that's great information. I haven't seen any other questions. So I'd like to thank you, Ben, for doing all this work. You did a great job. It answered a lot of my questions I had still.
And like I said, if anyone has any questions, my number is available on the West Central Florida website. Just give me a call, and if we need to conference in whoever we need to conference in, we'll do it and get it straightened out. I mean, that's the biggest thing right now that I'm seeing out here is we have counties that certain parties say, well, this is how we're going to do it because that's how we've done it for 20 years. Well, that's not the standard. The other thing that I would challenge every single EC and assistant EC, everyone on this call, is to actually get a copy of your comprehensive emergency management plan. It's public records from your emergency management department, and read at least the ESF2 part, which is communications, and what they say that amateur radio will do. Because some counties have in writing that amateur radio is the stop all, fix all, or the magic bullet. Well, that's all fine and good, except for when there's only 2 amateurs in the county, and one of them has to go to a special needs shelter, and the other one can't operate for more than 12 hours at a time because they can't operate for multiple days. So anyway, my suggestion is everyone start with their CEMP, what you're actually tasked with in each county. And if you're not, I personally would be asking my emergency management director if they would give me a memo or something as to what they expect out of my amateur radio or my ARES group or my RACES group or however you want to say it, and go from there. And if they give you direction that they're going to use WebEOC, then by all means make sure that anyone that's going to operate it at the EOC has WebEOC training. You can't pop into certain situations and learn it on the fly without a steep learning curve.
Yeah, I've gone through WebEOC. Yeah, I've gone through WebEOC training, and it's steep. It can get confusing quickly. I have a few things before we close up.
Each county's WebEOC is different, and the state's WebEOC is different. It's all customized per how they do operations.
Ah, I see. I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh yeah, there's not one standard.
Okay. Well,
that simple. But anyway, I'm finished.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ben. I just have a few things before we send everybody off here. Where was it? Mentioned the task book. I am still working on the task book. I sent out the general idea of what I had. It was 3 vertical columns with level 1, 2, and 3, and then put down underneath that was the tasks like the training, the participation, skills, all that stuff. And it would be required or optional, or just leave blank if it didn't really apply. That can be found on the group, the EC/AEC SDC group. If you're not part of the group, please contact me. It's very important that you are, because I've stopped sending out single emails because everybody that I was sending emails to have joined the group, and you miss the conversation if you're just getting the email from me. A lot of people chime in there, cover subjects that weren't covered there, and that I may not have brought up, and it's very important that you're there. The conversation is great because it gets ideas out. If you need an invitation, because it's invite only, contact me. I'm also making a reference book. I've sent some to Ben and John to have them take a look at it. But the reference book will have that ICS message sheet. There'll also be forms that we'd be using during a deployment. A lot of other information, acronyms. Just a reference for generally everything I can think of that you can take with you during a deployment, or just have it with you as a general rule of thumb. Take a look at. And the ARES conference I was talking about, I've been talking about the ARES conference in the group. I've already sent the information to the group that may be able to host us. Hopefully they will. If it is, it's going to be in the Tallahassee area this time. I'm getting a lot of people wanting it to have it in their area, and I understand North Florida is a very large area, and it's also in a bad timing because it's looking to be around May 27th at this point, 2019. Hopefully, we'll be able to get more of a confirmation and a date set. But next year, I will look into splitting it up to 2 different areas, one being in the Panhandle and one being in Central Florida. So both areas, which seems to be the split there in the middle, can make the conference. And I was really wanting to do one place this time because getting it face to face is very important. Emails, phone calls can go so far, but when you're face to face with the person, you get a better idea of what they're wanting to convey and talk about, and it's a lot easier to send ideas back and forth. But I will be looking into a different setup next year, and we will have one next year. It'll be most likely January, February, so it's away from hurricane season. We can prepare for hurricane season and cover how the previous hurricane season went. And let's see. Oh, last thing, a lot of people have been sending me more advanced, I guess you could say, ideas, and I do want to hear them, but they're getting eager to see them implemented. And like John's pointed out in the article that went out there, we're almost starting from scratch here. Thought we were up there in advanced areas before Michael. We found out we're way down here at the bottom, almost. So we're going over procedures with the state and the section, tri-section procedures. We're going all through these different areas. So even though I do want to hear about them, but about the ideas to get start in advancement and get in place, they're not going to be happening within weeks or months. I'm trying to get as much as possible of the basics down, the procedures, how everything's handled and done down before May or before June, sorry. So it's in place by hurricane season. But the more advanced areas will most likely will be starting next year. And this we're going to cover some of the ideas in the ARES conference. If you have any questions, give me a call or an email, whatever. If you have questions for Ben or John, give them an email. They're open just like I am, so you don't have to go through me to get a hold of them. We're all a good group of Florida and Floridians, I guess you could say. So we're all here to help all the groups here. In closing, Ben, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't have anything further to add. Thanks a lot, Carl, for inviting me to join your group meeting tonight, though.
And I have nothing else to add, but just, everyone, thank you for your time and effort all the way around. I think that's one thing that we don't do a lot of is pass down to all the people that are involved in ARES and RACES and emergency communications is to thank them, because there are countless hours that go into the entire process that people just don't see. So anyway, thank you, everyone.
Yep, you're very right, and I agree with that, especially for Michael. The people that deployed for Michael did a great job, and I think everybody out there does a great job. We do a lot of hours ourselves, but down in each county, each person, without you guys, we wouldn't be here. There would be no assistance, and amateur radio wouldn't be seen here in Florida. So it's good to have everybody here. Now, a quick question. Not have to answer it now. You can email me, but I was wondering if you would be interested in having these every month or every quarter. But just give me an email or a call about that idea. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and hopefully everybody will have a good weekend.